Hello. Welcome to Smart and Smart podcast, where real software engineers and real software managers discuss real software. On this podcast, I have my least smartest coworker in the world, Mr. Matt Jaffee. Jaffee is a world-renowned computer scientist and astrophysicist. His role here is to try to educate us all on the value of technology and ultimately why we should submit to his authority. Today is Season 0, Episode X. Where have all the software engineers gone? Before we get started, though, Jaffee, I cannot contain my excitement. With all the kids going back to school, that means one thing, Jaffee. Do you know what it is?
More traffic?
No. It means college football season. Can you believe it?
I can't believe it.
Yes. Jaffee, where'd you go to school, Jaffee? Please tell the world where you went to college at. Tell us about the sports there.
Not in a state that no one has ever heard of. West Virginia. Is that a real place, or is it just like a subset of Virginia?
West Virginia.
I heard West Virginia's state motto was "Open for Business." That's got to be the worst state motto ever.
Wow. West Virginia, where the men are men and the sheep are scared. Jaffee, I can say that because I went there. So I do have my favorite joke that my uncle likes to tell, and he kind of tries to get me every time. Did you know that the toothbrush was invented in the state of West Virginia? Did you know that?
I don't think that's true.
It is, because if it was invented in any other state, it would be called the teeth brush. So you're going to laugh at my uncle's joke? Great. So you still haven't told the world where you went to college at, Jaffee. Did you even go to college?
I went to Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
In Lancaster, Pennsylvania? That's Amish country. I know Lancaster, I've got family in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I didn't know they had a university there. Did they teach you how to do the horse and buggy there?
They left that out of the curriculum, actually.
What sports did they play? Rock throw and hoop roll? What did you do?
Just the normal college sports, Jason.
Just the Franklin and Marshall normal sports? Normal sports? What? Name one sport that your university is known for.
Known for? It's Division III. They're not known for anything.
Right. Okay. Well, did they have fraternities there? Did you join the fraternity?
Did. No.
Were you a member of a fraternity?
No. I was on the swim team.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Anybody who was on the swim team and joined a fraternity didn't last long on the swim team. That's how it usually happened.
Well, I cannot contain my excitement about college football. On September 2nd, West Virginia will be playing Penn State. And let me tell you what's going to happen. West Virginia is going to get smoked, but that's okay. Moving on to episode X here.
It's episode 10, and the title is Get Off My Lawn. So viewers, let me tell you how this episode came about. Because Jason sent me a message, and he said, I'm thinking we should do an episode on the current culture of software development. And so I said, okay, I'll bite. What is the current culture of software development? And Jason, I'm just reading this verbatim. Lazy. Everything is about speed. Faster. Quality is out the window. Security is out the window. We have too many software developers and not enough software engineers. So this is Jason's platform to, old man yells at sky or whatever. But that's what we're going to be talking about today.
That's only funny because it's true. So you don't think my comment was, where have all the software engineers gone? I think we've got a tremendous amount of software developers. Everybody's coding up the softwares all day long, but do we really have any software engineering? I mean, what did I miss the mark on there? Come on, Jaffee, correct me.
So, well, let's get it straight. Do you think that people have changed and gotten worse? Do you think the younger generation just is worse? Is that what's happening?
Worse at software engineering? 1,000%.
Yeah. So, and it's just because they're the younger generation. That's why.
No.
What's the reason?
It feels like every time I talk to a software developer, and I'm not even going to call him a software engineer, and I say value proposition. Not only do they not know what value proposition means, they can't even spell it. So yeah, why do we have software development when people don't understand the value that they're generating with their software? And that's the engineering aspect.
Okay, but why do you think that is?
Why? Because everyone thinks they can code. Everyone thinks it's all about the bits and the bytes. And I'm just look at the web page I just did. Look at the credit card transactions can I just take? Do I care about PII? No. Do I care that I have a cross script injection vulnerability? No. Man in the middle attacks? Not a problem. Dependency injection? Not a problem. But look how fast I did it.
Dependency injection is not a vulnerability. That's a software technique. Anyway,
Whatever, man. Whatever.
so I think if no doubt there is a shift toward, I think, move faster and break things over, build carefully, and there's no longer like 9-month testing cycles before release, at least not at good software engineering organizations. But I think you can't just blame the younger generation for this stuff, right? Like people haven't changed. People never change. People have been the same for 1,000 years. So I think you have to look at the market and the incentives and the incentive structures to understand why things are happening the way they are, right? So, like, do you know what the promotion structure is at like FANG companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon, these big companies?
What their promotion structure is?
Yeah, what are the incentives? How do you get promoted? How do you
Yeah,
level
probably
up inside
by
those
probably
companies?
by brown nosing your boss. You do enough PowerPoints and you probably get promoted.
That's actually not it. The believe it or not, Google actually, your boss cannot promote you. You have to submit a packet of stuff to a committee of people who doesn't even know you, and they it's more complicated than this, and there's a lot of good resources on this, but they decide whether or not you should be promoted, and it goes to some other review. Your boss has some say in it, but it's like very very slight compared to what happens at a lot of places. Uh, so Google tries to do a really good job of like making this fair and unbiased, but the way you get promoted, what they're looking for is you have delivered product, you have shipped software. All right, you know how many bugs you have to fix to get promoted at Google? There's no
Why
number. You can't get promoted by fixing bugs at Google.
why are there bugs? Why is that even a thing? Why do we keep creating all of these new bugs? What's the value in that?
Are you serious? Why are there bugs? I thought you were a software engineering manager.
So I don't want to diverge
Are you going to
from
tell me about
this.
the old days where you wrote software without bugs? Because guess what? Nobody believes that. Nobody believes you wrote software without bugs. There have
When
been
you're
bugs since you could walk inside computers and they were actual bugs stuck in the computers.
you know when I
That's the
started
etymology of the word, by the way. There was an
entomology of the
actual
word.
bug stuck in a
I
piece of hardware.
I did not know that, but I'm sure if I looked up on Snopes right now, it would be confirmed.
Yeah, I guarantee you it would be.
What type of bug was it?
I don't remember. I think it was a moth, actually.
What? It wasn't a gremlin, it was a bug.
It was a literal insect.
Okay. So clearly, writing bugs is okay. Apparently that's just part of the genre right now is hey, I can just create bugs when I'm delivering product. Is
Okay,
that what
but
you're
you
saying?
said right now. It's always been the case. There have always been bugs in software. Any non-trivial piece of software has bugs since the beginning of software.
So there's okay. That's a little bit of a false dichotomy because yes, when you write code, you do create mistakes, but that doesn't mean you promote those mistakes into the product And then therefore now we have all of these bugs with delivered product. Yes, there can be bugs, but you should fix them before they go to production, or at least um, categories of them, right? You can't just keep shipping these problems, especially when SecOps is coming back and going, look, you've got critical vulnerabilities that you're not addressing. Oh, we got to ship the product.
So you can certainly ship a product without any known bugs, but you can't ship a non-trivial product without bugs. Can we agree on that?
I'm close to conceding yes, because if you've done your due diligence and you didn't understand the specific scenario, sure. And there will be software that will be delivered with unknown bugs in them. That's correct. And ideally, that is close to zero, but sure, there's always that possibility.
Yeah. Okay. So great. Common ground. So there's always bugs. But the distinction that I think you're making is maybe you've been a part of organizations in the past that would not ship software that had known bugs, known vulnerabilities. Is that what we're talking about?
For the product and sales folks listening in right now, I'm differentiating between defects and known limitations. And that may feel like a nuance, but it is okay if products don't work exactly the way they're intended, if that behavior is still satisfactory to the customer, especially for the sake of time. No one's trying to deliver the perfect box. However, a defect versus a known limitation, and again, that's very nuanced, is an important distinction.
Okay. So what would you like to see be different?
Attention to detail, forethought, requirements gathering, meeting with customers. How many times has an engineer just said, oh, I'm going to go do this, and they deliver a really cool piece of software that's of no value or the wrong thing the customer wanted? I think we actually talked about this in a previous podcast. The difference between verification and validation. Verification is, in fact, that the software operates the way you intended it to operate. Validation is it's operating the way that the customer needs it to operate. So two distinctly different things. So I think we do a decent job on the verification side, but the industry lacks competency on the validation side, generating things that customers don't want, didn't ask for, or didn't need.
This sounds like a product problem and a management problem, right? I mean, you're talking, we're building the wrong things. That was your job, buddy.
So what I'm hearing you say is software engineers only develop what's asked of them, and they're never thinking outside the box, and they're never trying to deliver the next best wheel in all of their ongoings, and they're just little robots listening to product.
That grinds my gears because that's exactly how I hate to work. But that is how a lot of large companies are structured, right? You have a whole product team that doesn't actually produce stuff. Their job is to figure out what to produce. And you have a management team whose job is to make sure that the engineers are actually working on the things we want to produce, and that they're making progress and continuously improving and all these good things. Um, so I'm very much in favor of engineers taking some ownership over this. Often the engineers are the ones who understand what's possible, what can be done easily, what's going to be way too difficult, and so there has to be a constant cycle of communication between engineering and product if there is a product team. If there's not, then yeah, tons more responsibility falls on engineers to understand the customer better and understand what's actually going to create value, or what's going to be just noise, just extra code that now has to be maintained that's not useful.
Yeah, you're really losing me here. Your perspective is one that you read in a book, right? The reality is product defines ideas.
Umbrage. I take umbrage.
Right? Product defines ideas. A JIRA story. What is the purpose of a JIRA story? It's an initiation for conversation. And you can have internal stakeholders, you can have external stakeholders. So I am a product manager, and I would like my product to do X, right? Not 10, X. So a software engineer needs to be able to meet with their customer, whether it's internal or external, and have a conversation. At West Virginia University, I had software engineering 101. 101. And what that course was meeting with the teacher who acted at the time as a customer. You could think of them as a product owner who needed us to create something. We had to learn how to interact with people. Now, if I handed you a bucket of 10 random engineers, Jaffee, how many of them could actually speak to a customer to try to do derived requirements to understand what it really is that the customer is built needs built?
On average, I would say 0.7.
Great. 0.7. Are you familiar? This may be my concept, but I know I can't take credit. I know I read it somewhere. Are you familiar with the difference between a task based relationship and a committed relationship?
No.
So, in the software world or in the product world, a task based relationship is where a customer says, I need you to build me a calculator. It needs to be able to add numbers. Please go do that. Right. So then the software engineer or the programmer develops a calculator and it adds two numbers. And then the customer comes back and goes, no, 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 I didn't really mean that. I need you to subtract two numbers. So then the developer goes back and says, okay, I now subtract two numbers. That's a task based relationship, prescriptive. A committed relationship is where the software engineer says, well, tell me what is it that you're trying to solve? What is the problem you're trying to solve? Oh, you need to be able to do linear regression on your dependency injection variables, right? And and the concept there is, if your customer is walking toward a cliff, you don't just kind of walk off the cliff with them. In a committed relationship, you hold their hand and you pull them away from a cliff. That's a skill. And it's a skill that is lost, in my opinion, on the current generation of software engineers slash developers. What? No, no response? No, nobody. You got to go to chapter 10. Chapter 10 in your book on software development. I'll talk about it.
So in your opinion, back in your day, engineers just were better at holding the customer's hand and being in a committed relationship than they are today?
Absolutely, because of speed. Now, you didn't pull my speed comment out of context, because it is true, right? Everything is faster now, right? You've got these huge fiber optic cables just so the financial institutions can be a millisecond faster than another one for trading, right? Everything is fast. However, software is becoming too fast, in my opinion. It's diminishing returns. We're creating work for ourselves because we're not slowing down. The old adage, you need to slow down to speed up. We're developing all the wrong things. It ends up just getting thrown away and having to redo it. And if we just took a breath, right, and just said, was it Kettering, whatever that genius's name was, right? A problem well stated is a problem half solved. So, like, ask a question, like, what is it we're trying to do? What is this the best solution? If you're out there choosing a database, right, you're not just going to go pick some random one. You're gonna do a little investigation and figure out, do I really need low latency queries on fresh data? Is that my value proposition, or do I need referential integrity for a transactional system? You're gonna ask those questions. Now, you're smart enough to do that, all right, maybe, but we need to make sure future generations, it's not just about slot counts, which you remember. Do you remember when in school when they said the average lines of code an engineer produces a day is supposed to be 10? I'm sure it's now like 100 a day. And we need to be better about that as an industry and as a culture, in my opinion.
So you want to slow down to speed up, and things are moving too fast for you, and your life is passing you by. Okay, yeah, I think we get it. I would argue that there are market incentives. Um, the reason that things are moving faster now is because the the downside or the risk of falling behind your competitors, of failing to ship something in a timely manner, is usually usually outweighs the downside of having security problems or having bugs or whatever else. And that's just the direction that things have gone, because that's what the market rewards. The market rewards getting there first and being able to iterate quickly over producing something that is the right thing the first time, but got to market a few months too late. If you look at, and this isn't in across every vertical, right? There's certainly some verticals where things move slower than others, but especially if you look at what's going, with all these like new AI companies and stuff, a few months makes a huge difference, in terms of getting capabilities to market and getting market share and mind share. And for better or for worse, companies have to weigh the risks and benefits, and the risk of having security vulnerabilities or bugs is just outweighed by getting to market first in terms of like expected long-term value.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I want to take a step back. I mean, because basically what you just said is, we don't need to worry about security because we reward speed. But let me
No,
take a step.
that's not what I said. I said that a company has to maximize its the value it captures, right? Like that's what capitalism does. And if the market is rewarding getting to market, getting your product out earlier to a high degree, and is not punishing bugs and security problems to a high degree, the company's hands are basically tied, right? You like if you want to survive, you have to do the thing that makes sense when you weight all the possibilities and the values and the risks. And I think that's just what today's market demands.
Let me take this from a different angle. So you're talking about strategies, but you haven't talked about tactics, and not all tactics are the same. You're not hearing me say, well, we need to slow down and use a waterfall model, and we need to have, go back to fixed price contracts, and everything takes forever. That's not my point. I'll choose one tactic that we can talk about, which is the lean model. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it's the concept of build, measure, learn. And I think everybody listening in can agree that the lean model is probably one of the fastest models out there. But I believe if you look at the software industry today, we're doing the building. We rarely measure, and we're probably not learning enough. But the lean model as a tactic allows us all of the instrumentation to do what you're talking about, but we still have to invest in actually those actions. So building, measuring, and learning. And this was from the book, the what was it called, the Lean Startup, Eric Rice, I believe. Excellent book. If anyone has not read it on the listening in right now. And there was a company that had to do a complete pivot because it listened to its customers. It built something, it listened, and pivoted. And that cycle is super valuable for everything that you described. But to categorize that all we can do is just build, 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 and not measure and learn, I think is I don't want to say false dichotomy again, but I don't think that's a required trade off.
Yeah, I listen. I don't disagree that we can get better at building building. Essentially, you're right. Like building and having quality, and you know, improving our processes. Because there is definitely some truth to like go slow to go fast. There's definitely been cases where taking just a little bit more time would save a whole bunch of time. In very short order. So I'm not. I don't disagree with that, but I think maybe what you're feeling is just that there's just a lot more demand for talent in today in 2023 than there was 15, 20, 40 years ago.
The day of the
Uh,
moth, the time of the moths.
there's more demand for talent today, and so what's there is stretched pretty thin, and so a lot of companies are having to deal with younger engineers, like younger and less experienced people, and potentially even less talented people, because there being more demand means that um, the rewards for being in this industry are higher, right? Supply and demand. There's not enough supply and there's a lot of demand, so the cost of talent goes up. And if the cost goes up, that drives more people into the talent pool. And they may not be people who would otherwise have gone into it, right? They may not be in it for the love of it, right? Right. Um, and so it could be that what you're feeling is not um, is not that things have changed so much. It's just that there's much greater demand for software engineering talent overall, which spreads it much thinner, and so you're dealing with a less talented workforce overall, less experienced and or less talented.
Less talented. See, that's where I would probably disagree. I think I think it's probably a little bit more on what you said earlier, which is what does capitalism reward? And I think that's where the analysis needs to be done because it can't. I have a classic question I like to talk to when I talk to product owners or product managers, and they're asking for a feature, and they say, "I need it," or salesperson, obviously, I need this feature in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I can't do it. It's not possible. Well, can't you just this? And what about this? And then my response to them is, okay, well, I'll give you the feature in 2 weeks, but it won't have the right level of quality. Now, there's a lot of subjectivity in my statement purposefully. So, Jaffee, I can give you your feature in 2 weeks, but it won't have the right level of quality. Would you accept that?
I mean, I don't think you should offer that, right? Because if it doesn't have the right level of quality, then it's not the feature, right? It's not there.
No, I can give you the feature, it just won't have the right level of quality.
Quality? Are,
Quality.
are there like small
Quality.
Australian bears?
So even your reaction there is, deep down, that speed is not what's most important, right? There's the triangle. I love the triangle, which is scope, quality, resource, or scope, quality, time. Scope, quality, time is one of the triangles. So you already knew that you can't take that feature because it doesn't have the right level of quality. Basically, what I'm saying is I'll give you that capability, but I can't make any promises about the stability of the system. And everybody knows that you shouldn't take it. So that's a counter to your point, which says what's most important is speed. The truth is, it's really not. What's most important is quality, i.e., user experience.
Well, my point isn't that what's most important is speed. My point is that the market rewards getting there first with enough quality to capture market share, right? So it's still a balance. I just think it's a little bit more in favor of speed over quality because, and again, very industry dependent, very vertical dependent. But I do think that for most software that goes out there today, that's consumer facing, it's the new Twitter thing or the new social media app. The speed ends up being more important than the quality.
I'm not buying it, Jaffee, because you just said it. What if I offered you the feature with almost enough quality? Would you take the feature?
Dude, like you're not selling to me though. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm not the average person.
You're making the point that speed is rewarded. So I'm offering you speed, and I'm just like, it's just not quite enough quality, and you still won't take it.
I definitely won't. But I'm a weirdo and I know this, right? Like I am not the market for most consumer software today. I I look at like you look at like you go to like an auto shop or you go to a grocery store or anything like this and you look at this or maybe even like the dentist and you look at the software they're using to like check you out or to track you or they used to it used to be like these like really ugly text-based interfaces, but the people operating those things could operate them so fast. It was all keyboard based, they could fly through the windows, there was no latency on anything. And nowadays it's like you've got all these GUI apps, there's like windows popping up on top of each other, everything is slow, the receptionist at your doctor's office is like, oh, sorry, the system today, it's the system, it's always the system. and that bugs me so much. I would take those old text-based expert interfaces that were keyboard-based any day of the week, for anything over the newer graphical interfaces that are slow and complicated and buggy, and I just can't stand that stuff. Well, most people wouldn't do that. Most people, want the windows and stuff to give them little handholds and to be easy to use the first time, not the 50th time, the 100th time, the 1,000th time.
Have you actually ever used a VT100 system?
No.
But you know that it's the text-based quick system for interacting, right? Where you use the tab key and you can cycle through and quickly enter things. Those were the good
Yeah.
old days.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I don't disagree.
so what I'm hearing you say is when things were less complicated, they were easier to create.
I don't know. I mean, were things less complicated then? I guess like a lot of the front end was, but
Just point of sale. It's just point of sale system. How hard could it be?
yeah, I know. I mean, I think, those older systems, I'm sure they had their problems too, but you could fly right through them.
Still are very many mainframes still in existence.
Yeah, I've heard COBOL is the language to learn if you want to get a job. They really need COBOL programmers.
I'm not sure the moth count though. We'll have to check on that. Did you know? So let's talk about back in the 1920s when I was a software engineer. I was allowed, and I worked for Northrop Grumman. Right, I worked for a defense contractor. Very grateful for the help starting my career. I was allowed one kickback from test per year. One. How many
Can
kicks?
you explain what that means? Kickback from test. It sounds
So
like you're getting payments or something.
kickback. So
Taking bribes.
if I'm producing real software at a probably about 10 lines of code per day, and that gets pushed out to quality, QA, verification, and validation, and if that gets kicked back more than once a year, that would be a ding on my performance review.
How many times a year did you push it out to quality?
Uh, so I mean, we're there. So the dev staging, dev QA environment was much different than it is now. But probably dev environment a number of times a day, two, three, four times a day. And then whenever there was a release, it would get pushed out to QA. And if there was any problems and it was found in my area, then that would be my issue.
Right, but how many releases are there per year?
So there really wasn't releases because again, this was a fixed price contract, so there wasn't tagging like you would think of it today. It hadn't been released to the customer yet.
Right,
Uh,
what I'm getting at is, you say you get one per year that can come back.
uh,
How many trials are there? How many times was it possible
I
for
see what
that
you're
to
saying.
happen?
I don't know, probably dozens, I'd say.
Dozens. There are dozens of us. Yes. Um,
Now, how many kickbacks from CI/CD do you get per day? Is really what my question is. I mean, how many times is GitLab telling you, "Hey, Jaffee, you need a you need a semicolon at the end of this line. Come on."
but yeah, it depends on how hard I'm working, but a couple few.
So
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that over the decades since Mothman, there's been a great reduction in quality overall throughout the software industry, and that's being overcome by speed, things
But
like
again,
CI/CD.
that's a false dichotomy, right? Because I'm not pushing to a team of people who are like reviewing my stuff. Like, that's akin to you pushing to your dev environment several times a day, right? And just having some automated checks that run and tell you if you screwed something up. I can run those checks on my local machine. It's often easier to just let CI do it, but um, I don't think that's apples and oranges.
When was the last time you stepped through your code with two or more other engineers? Every line that you changed, not in a
I,
PR, not. I'm talking in a meeting interactively.
well, sometimes I pair program where we just
Not
make
not
all the
not not
changes together.
code review, peer review, PR, code walkthrough. Are you familiar with the term?
We just did one this morning. I had like 10 people on the call.
And you walked how many lines of code? Like three?
Oh, it's like over 1,000.
You did not do that this morning. You walked through
We
a thousand
did.
lines. You walked through 1,000 lines of code. How long did it take you?
Well, over 800 of them were deletions because I removed a whole bunch of crap. So we didn't walk through every one of those. It was just like, yep, this is all gone because that feature is no longer there. But we walked through all the new lines
How is that
pretty carefully.
possible? How is it possible that you're spending all of your time, your limited, highly valuable time, deleting code, deleting features? You just proved my point. Software engineers are spending time deleting capabilities. How is that possible when speed is paramount?
Well, the lines that I added replaced the value that those capabilities were delivering, just in a much simpler way.
Why didn't we deliver the simpler way to start?
Well, that would be wonderful, Jason, but sometimes you do something and you learn from it and then you do it better the next time. Sometimes you build something, you measure how it works, and then you learn from it. Sometimes it works that way.
Where have all of the good software engineers gone? I don't get it,
It's just
Jaffee.
like the process is like taking place before your eyes, and yet you refuse to see it.
I'm just, I don't know. It's much easier with punch cards, you know? No, actually, I have to go on record. I actually never used punch cards. I am not that old. No washing
Yeah,
machine computers for me.
I didn't think you had.
So you're happy with the trajectory of software development, where basically in 3 months everyone's just going to be doing, hey, Chat GPT, build me my interface. That you're happy with this direction.
No, I'm super depressed actually. My point was, let's understand why it's happening. My point was not this is great and everything's awesome. Um, because like I look at a company like Google. They have some really old established products. Not really old by your measure, but old. They have some really old established products that people use every day and need to work, like Gmail, search, these kinds of things. And then they have like cutting edge initiatives, doing AI stuff or whatever. I think it's really hard as a company to provide the right incentives and the right culture and direction for both those things. I believe that products like Gmail would be best served by focusing almost entirely on bug fixes and performance improvements. I don't need Gmail to do anything new. I need it to be faster, and I need it to work every time, right? I need it to work perfectly and be super reliable. I believe that they could build an impregnable moat by focusing on performance and stability all the time, right? Like making Gmail, because if you switch from Gmail to something else and everything that was taking 40 milliseconds now takes 400 milliseconds, which is perfectly, you could easily imagine that happening, in a less mature mail app. Like you're going to feel that and you're going to hate it. Like everything's just going to feel a little bit laggy, like you're walking through quicksand. So if I had my way, that's what I like in software. I like to feel very, very snappy. I like it to be incredibly usable and very, very stable. But going back to the market incentives, the stuff that's like new development, innovative stuff, like you have to have a completely different mindset if you're going to capture market share there and be a leader. And I think you can't get as bogged down focusing on stability and performance and security when you're exploring a new space. You have to learn as quickly as possible and figure things out. And I think it's hard for a company to have both those ideas and apply both those directions at the same time. Like you really need to split and say, like here at Gmail, our culture is stability and performance, and we never have bugs, and quality is always perfect. And then you've got your like team of kids on the other side who are just like move
Always
fast
an
and break things, like whatever. And I don't think it's really hard to have both those cultures at the same time. And I think you have to compartmentalize to do that.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to what you're talking about. I mean, I use Elm, and it's a fantastic email reader. And I tried to use Pine, and Pine was just a non-intuitive interface, and I'm like, wow, this is taking way too long. So I just went back to Elm, and that's just been a fantastic email reader for me. So I've just I can kind of see what you're saying about wanting to build a moat around Elm and not use other email generators like Pine. I get it. You have any idea what I'm talking about?
So I'm familiar with the names, and I know you don't use either of them.
Oh my, are you kidding? Let me bring up links right now, and I'll navigate to the website to show Elm. Snappy is lost. Snappy is lost because you can't monetize Snappy. I cannot tell you how many devices in my house that I can absolutely tell that they've introduced some sort of monetization technique on. I'm not talking like mine and Bitcoin. I'm talking about the stuff is slowing down. The hardware hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is the firmware, and I'm sure
Oh
they're
no,
trying to
the hardware's
monetize
gotten
things.
faster. That's
No. I mean, there's a device. There's lots of different. Whether it's an Amazon Fire Stick or a Ring camera, when you first unpack those things, they are snappy, to use your term. And then all of a sudden, everything gets slower. Like Alexa, set me a 5 minute timer, and then like 3 minutes later, Alexa's like, "Oh, your 5 minute timer's been set." I'm like, "That's not very helpful." Right? So yeah, I get the trade off because there's no value, monetary value in making Gmail snappy other than retention and stickiness of the product, which actually I believe is what's most important. I don't believe monetization, but when you look at stock price for publicly traded companies, that's what the most important thing is.
yeah. I bought several years ago. I bought an Android TV, a smart TV that used the Android TV operating system because it was it was rated as being fast, and it was the only one that didn't have a bunch of built-in ads. Lo and behold, a couple years later, they added ads in. Everything started to suck. And I bought an Apple TV and plugged it into it, and I don't use the smart TV, the Android TV part of it anymore.
Yeah, we can circle back to not much has changed, right? Wasn't that the original draw of cable television? So you pay now for cable so you don't get ads. Hmm.
Was it
And
really?
then, yeah, so that was the original concept of cable. So over air,
Man.
you get ads and you get commercials. And cable was supposed to be, well, you don't get ads anymore. And then now you got ads everywhere. And same with, I don't know, just get off my lawn. But yeah,
Yeah. No, that's the title of the episode, and we should probably wrap it up before we go too deep down this
I
hole.
got to tell you, Jaffee, I know you've kind of taken the lead on this. You haven't convinced me because I think I made my case where I talked about you can have speed, but at the not quite level of quality, and you knew what that meant. So speed is not what's most important. Quality is most important. We got to stop lying to ourselves and start investing in really what's important, which is less moths, more quality, more requirements gathering, and just a little bit slower.
Jason, I haven't convinced you because I'm on your side. That's what I want too. The only thing I want to convince you of is there's a reason things are happening the way they are, and if we want to fix it, we have to understand that reason and understand the dynamics at play. I don't think we can just go out and say these kids, they don't like quality. Like that's not the problem.
Yeah, no. All right, so to wrap us up here, does Benjamin Franklin University you went to does that have any cheers? Did you know any cheers?
Uh, yeah. So the swim team, we had a really wacky cheer that we did at the beginning of every meet.
Wacky.
Um, I mean, it was just like a bunch of like random sounds. I don't know. It was strange actually, but it was fun. And then the you're gonna love this. The mascot of Franklin and Marshall are the diplomats.
The
Yeah. So it's
the
go dips.
diplomats. Go dips.
Yeah.
I cannot top that with "Let's Go Mountaineers." Go dips. Go dips. Go take a dip. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So Jeffy, why don't you close us out?
Yeah. If you like the show, you can ask us questions and stuff. I don't remember any of the stuff right now. At Smart Snarkcast on Twitter. smartandsnark@gmail.com. And we're available in all the podcast apps. If we're not available on one you like, let us know, and we'll try to figure out how to make it happen. And I think that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.